Okay, so this won't take very long. All right. 1.4 is just addressing the issue of the importance of unity of life and all forms of life and common features, basically, aka genetic information, DNA, the bonding link or the glue that brings us all together, the universal blueprint, you might want to say, of all living things found on Earth. Okay, there's not been some mysterious category that does not have the internal blueprint, or if you want to think of it the same way as if you're at a grocery store, it looks like an internal barcode, right? But it's a series of bases, as hopefully you remember a little bit, A, T, C, and G, and a double helix, and with those hydrogen bonds holding both sides of the ladder together, and every cell has a complete DNA makeup of you. Okay? Each DNA molecule is made up of chains, 4 chemicals, which are the A, T, C, and G, adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine, which we probe deeper into that in the second semester. Remember, this is just touching base, trying to spark a little bit of interest or a little bit of, getting thinking in the science frame of mind, I guess you might say. But they're also thought of as the building blocks. I mean, you got to start somewhere, okay? No different than the way the letters in the alphabet are set in stone, and when you take letters, you put them in certain sequences that form words that would create images or meaning. Take those words, put them in chain, and then we read them, gives us a sentence that tells us something, and information. And it's no different. You got a series of real simple letters, okay, that when put in certain codes and certain sequences for other building parts, not to go into extensive detail, you get certain things are carried out. So, in essence there, here's looking at a simple one side of a helix, okay, all right? Normally it would be a complete twisted ladder, but this is just showing you here. And these 3 little parts, which we don't get into now because this isn't the unit we're doing that, and like I said, it's just touching base. But the A, C, T, and there's a G, adenine, stands for adenine, cytosine, thymine, and G for guanine. The actual little blue is standing for a sugar, okay, which is deoxyribose, right? That's the D in the DNA. And the little yellow part is the little phosphate group that locks them all together. So, there's a certain simple, almost like a zipper, I guess you might want to say, or pattern, and the way in which these letters match up with their counterparts, A always goes to T and C always goes to G, okay? But this is only one side, so if I had an opposite side over here, I'd have T, I'd have a G here, A, and so on, okay? But when these things are put no different than the same way you pick letters in alphabet, right? They form a certain code, right? Or for a certain feature or a certain instinct or whatever it might be, and it's carried out or displayed or expressed, is usually the right word to talk about, within that organism, okay, that it codes for, okay? So basically those properties, okay, all right, of DNA for those organisms were summarized up in these, looks like 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah, 7, okay? Basically they got to give you some structure, some order, okay? More importantly, they're kind of like referees. They're regulating. They're monitoring that when like your hypothalamus is your internal thermostat. Okay, when your body temperature, byproduct of heat due to muscular activity or whatever it is, goes up, it releases a stimuli to a hormone, which to your sebaceous gland to cause you to help sweat. Moisture perspires. It evaporates. It helps relieve heat. Okay, it's just one simple example. You got your blood sugar, you got all various different things, adrenaline, you got your pituitary gland, all these different glands and hormones are regulated to help keep our body in a homeostatic mechanism, a normal functioning state. You got growth and development, that's a no-brainer. We're growing and developing at a rapid rate, more cells, replacing cells, and making new cells. Energy use, you got to have something that's regulating that, everything you're taking in your body. All right, you got to have some way of converting it into ATP, which is the internal fuel in our cells, which we use. Response to our environment, stimuli or stimulus. If I was to slam a book right now, and all of you were, quietly sitting there or half asleep or turned off your monitors and hit that, might make you wake up real quick. Oh, Meyer, why did you do that? I startled you. Okay, I didn't scare you. I startled you. And usually what that happens is an instantaneous response where the adrenaline, which is your fight or flight drug, okay, in response to that will release, and all of a sudden you're wide awake for a quick second, and all of your senses are on point. Reproduction, very so important. Okay, ability to continue to procreate, okay? Which is basically a term we refer to as fitness. The actual true definition of fitness goes all the way back to science, which means just to survive and reproduce, okay? A lot of times now we think of the word fitness as, athletic or able to do feats and other, a phenom like professional athletes or so on. But the word actually fitness was defined as to be able to survive and reproduce, which is being physically fit or to establish fitness in your ecosystem or in your environment. And then evolve, improve. It means improve over time, okay? The ability to do that. And if we're not growing and moving forward or end up sitting still, that's what a lot of times, because everything else is moving forward, causes the stress or the potential for an extinction or removal from a certain organism within an ecosystem. Okay. And these are just pictures showing you the diversity. Obviously, the same DNAs that make up this pretty flower to this jackrabbit. I always like this picture too. Hopefully you can kind of see it here, but notice how the sun's reflecting out behind it. And you think about this, and I always brought this up. I go, when I see this, I'm like, there's this nice fluffy jackrabbit with these large satellite membrane auricular ears. But you see as this light's coming through here, you see the vascularization of the capillaries with the blood flow. You see the little red blood vessels all throughout the ear, okay? And the light's reflecting through it, okay? Well, one of the things you don't do is say, how do you think a bunny regulates its heat? You don't see a bunny all sweaty and matted. They're always fuzzy and soft. Well, one of the things that how they regulate the heat is notice the high vascularization of network of this oxygenated blood that has a lot of heat. Well, as it goes into these thin membranes, they can turn their ears into the wind, and as the wind blows across it, same way like a dog pants, it cools the blood and helps regulate the body temperature. That's why bunnies in the peak of winter, they turn their ears inward and they lay them on their back, no different than you zip up your coat or you put your arms or body parts in close to your body if you want to conserve body heat. Okay, so that's a simple, something you may overlook, but that's an example of a design, okay, within its DNA makeup, and how this particular animal regulates, its body temperature. Just a Venus flytrap there showing you even in a plant predation. Panda bear, obviously just showing you mammals. So they were just showing you pictures of the various different animals. 1.5 is just dealing with the diversity of life, which is actually the first main unit we'll get into of naming. Okay, it's one of my favorite ones, but it's one of the set things that from taxonomy, not taxidermy, but taxonomy, which is the naming of whether it be common names or the scientific names, classifies them into species, which everything has a specific order. No different than if you organize your closet. So we'll learn the good old-fashioned kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. Science has identified over about 1.8 million species, particular types. It's actually higher than that now. I think it's closer to the 2.2. Okay, so this data is a little older there. I guess we could Google it and see exactly where they're at now, but that last I checked, I thought that's where they were at. They talk about, but one of the things that you talk about information and knowledge. Prior to this, when I learned this, they added a category called domains. Now, you guys are probably already were familiar with that, but kingdom used to be the largest grouping: the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, the fungi, bacteria or prokaryotes and things of that nature. But when they started to get better technology and look deeper into that, they realized that the kingdom Monera, okay, which was all single-celled organisms, bacteria and things like that, could be subdivided into another group. So the eukaryotes all stayed the same with the basic plants, animal, protists, and fungi, the eukaryotic, complex cells. But what they did is they took that one kingdom and they subdivided it into domains. So they added a category above, so all four of those fell into that. So that initial kingdom Monera was divided, and you may or may not know that, but if you ever see it, that's what I mean. And they took the bacterias and they were able to divide them into separate categories because there was enough differences there and enough of them that they could clearly have a group within a group. So they added domains. And that's obviously just a simple picture of bacteria there. This side here a little bit. Okay. Simple bacteria, various things. Showing you, obviously, those last two were showing you the two parts of the domain, archaean, or the ancient bacteria, and the new bacteria, okay, which were right there, the domain bacteria, bacterium, and archaea, which means ancient. And then just showing you how the other four, which are, there's your plant kingdom, fungi, animalia, and protistas, okay? Those four that all were eukaryotic, okay? Lumped into that other domain. And then everything stayed the same. Okay? Then 1.6, we've got a little exercise with that today, talking about simple Darwinism. Charles Darwin proposed a theory. Remember, theory is the best educated guess on how natural selection took place within the animal kingdom. Okay? Talked about how possibly species evolved from ancestors, from other descents with modification, meaning as they went from point A to point B over time, there were certain things that adjusted and changed within it, possibly coloration or maybe legs or teeth or some type of adaptation or a modification with descent, meaning as they move forward to cope with or adapt or fit into the environment. Natural selection occurs as heritable variations are exposed to environmental factors. Okay, so as the environment changes, okay, certain innate features within an organism helps them cope, helps them understand, helps them survive, maintain fitness, survival, and reproduction. Okay, and the production of natural selection is considered an adaptation because if an organism does not fit in or adapt to its environment, it's under an extreme amount of stress, and we put it in that category of possibly either it has to move on, compete, or go extinct. Here's a little picture. I'm going to turn off this other light so you can see, hopefully, the slides a little better with this. But one thing is you see these different colored bugs, okay? And what it's showing you is the example of that is just from natural selection here, all the potential coloration of these various beetles. And obviously this insectivore bird from the Avis family on a dark background sees the lighter versions, and so they're more prone to being eaten. You might have heard of the peppered moth theory, okay? Over in the arbor forest, I can't believe in England, but during the Industrial Revolution, the bark of the trees was kind of a dirty white kind of aspy color with black striations. Well, there was different variations of the same colored moth that were kind of a white, kind of a charcoaly, and a darker opaque black color. Well, scientists noticed the population that the light colored moths that blended in with the bark were in higher quantity than the darker or the grayish ones there, because obviously predators could see them a lot easier. But then one of the things they noticed is that during the Industrial Revolution, the soot, this is the peppered moth theory, started staining the barks and changing the color of the barks. So therefore, the lighter colored beetles all of a sudden were on a darker background, and they saw a complete flip where the birds didn't care what they ate. Insect was an insect, but whatever they could see, for hunting purposes, instinctual. So the darker moths blended in because the bark was being stained from the soot from the big, large smokestacks that were bellowing into the woods. So the scientists got to actually see a massive change within an ecosystem due to human influence, and really saw that it is the organism, and clarify that it's really the organism that has to adjust, to its environment. It's not the other way around. It's not like, okay, this organism goes here and let's make this environment suit it perfectly. No, it has to find its niche. It has to find its place. Okay? So you kind of see that here. You notice that the bird is snatching up the lighter ones. So over time, you see that the darker ones and the grayer ones have a greater chance in number. So when it comes to the reproductive cycle, when they reproduce, those containing that coloration gene reproduce offspring that have a higher percentage of that, but more than likelihood. So throw in a bunch of time, you start seeing a shift towards these beetles, okay, that have a darker in this opaque, coloration or structure, as opposed to the handful that had the white or lighter colors because they became part of the food chain with the little birds. Okay, so in a nutshell, that's like I said, and you can review that with, it's just another picture there, some just diversity there, okay? So you can look at that from in the textbook there. So that was just real quick, 1.3, 1.4, 1.4, 1.5, and 1.6. Easy activities with that. And then we have a couple more that'll stem into next week as we get to the latter part of chapter 1. Like I said, remember, it's just brief overview, but I thought I would just make this quick little video for it because there wasn't really a lot of content other than reviewing and reading it yourself, okay? And just kind of looking it over, and most people say, okay, yeah, I know what DNA is, okay, I heard some similar terms, I understand the order of things, kingdom, phylum, class, all right? And basically I've heard natural selection, I've heard, descent by modification. Hopefully these are all terms that you've heard, you should have at some point in a Bio 1 or an advanced bio or some other class in that nature, okay? All right, I'm gonna shut this all down.